Hello everyone, welcome back to House of Chi Yoga. Today we're going to get started on the mat. We'll do a nice stretchy class. I've got 2 blocks here. If you have blocks, go ahead and grab them, bring them into the practice today. If not, you can still do all the movements without blocks, no worries. I do have a blanket on. It's quite cold in the studio this morning, and my socks on. So if you have a blanket, socks, whatever you'd like to stay warm and comfortable, go ahead and grab it now and we will get started. So starting with a little focusing. We'll do a little breath and meditation. Get comfy on the mat. You can go sits bones to the mat. You can sit on your blocks. You can sit on a pillow. Whatever is going to help you relax in the moment. And then any movement or adjusting you need to get out, you can kind of wiggle, shake out the shoulders, find the sitting bones. I always like to wiggle the toes. And open the mouth on the exhales to relax the jaw. You can let the head fall and hang heavy. Let's do one more exhale out of the mouth. And then we'll bring the peace fingers to the eyelids and just let the weight of the head fall forward to the fingertips. You're not pressing the fingers into the eyes. It's just the weight of the head that's adding the pressure. Starting to come into the body. Notice where the breath is traveling. With the head leaning forward like this, there's space for the breath in the back of the neck. There's space in the upper back. Keeping the gaze closed. Let's just let the hands fall down into the lap and the head comes back up. We'll take our left palm and keep it open towards the ceiling and the right palm and flip it so it's facing down towards the floor. Now as you breathe, we're going to move through the palms. So on the inhale, we'll go in through the left palm. You'll travel up the arm to the shoulder, across the chest, and then you're going to go down the right arm, all the way down through the right palm. And then as you continue your inhales, you'll move across back to the left palm, up and over, exhale back down through the right palm. So you're creating this circular breath, this ease of flow from left to right, an ease of inhale and exhale. Calming breathing. Fluid deep breaths. Allowing the body to slow, the heart to slow, the breathing to slow. And as you continue this inhale through the left, exhale through the right, you create this almost sphere of energy in the front of the body. Trying to stay with your breathing. If at any time the mind wanders, just start back at the fingertips, go back to your inhale, and find the circular rhythm again. Keep breathing. But then notice if there's any sort of sensation in the front of the body as you're breathing and creating energy in the front space. Maybe you have some tingling sensations. There could be a heaviness. It could be a lightness. Just notice if you have anything that's a little bit different than normal. Taking a few more inhales and exhales, being more intentional with your breathing now, being more powerful with the inhale, bringing in more energy to the body. And this last inhale, we're going to hold at the top. Once you're at the top, left hand to heart, right hand to belly, keep holding. Try to keep holding, creating an energy lock. Lift the pelvic floor, pull your navel to your spine, tuck the chin to the chest, and lift the heart. Try to keep holding. Exhale, release. Shake out the hands. Open and close the fingers. You can circle through the wrist. And then we'll just maybe take the blanket off. I don't know if I'm ready to take the blanket off. We'll just lean forward first. If you'd like to use your block, you can use the block at the forehead. And I'm going to place the block right across the brow line, right across the third eye area, so that my neck can relax, the jaw can stay soft, can roll from temple to temple, get a little forehead massage here. And we've started opening up some spaces in the body with our breathing this morning, this afternoon, or whenever you're doing. It's morning for me. But as we go through this practice, just continue to breathe and continue to open up the spaces in the body. Starting to walk the hands back up through center. We'll just take the blocks out to the side and let the hands move across body. You can start bringing the hands up to shoulder level. And then take the hands up and above the head. And getting some rotation through the spine, bring the hands back down to shoulder level. And then all the way back through center. We'll inhale, palms rise. Exhale, hands to heart center. Feel every fingertip touching. Press the palms together. Press the fingertips together. You can do a little push-pull like this to wake up the hands, wake up the wrist. And then lift the elbows enough so that you can feel the forearms. And we'll flip the palms down. Hands are together. Keep pressing. Maybe now you can bring the elbows down and feel a nice stretch across the wrist. Releasing the hands. Give them a couple circles. And then arms to a 90, big circling through the shoulders. You're pushing the heart forward and pulling the heart back. So as we're moving through the shoulder girdle, we're also opening up through the ribs, both front body and into the upper back. Landing, fingertips to the shoulders, bring the rib cage in. We're going to start working with our breath a little bit more. Abs are active this time. As we twist, we're going to use the core, fire up the core, and we're going to breathe with our movement. So it'll be a twist, 1 inhale, 2 inhale, and then twist, 1 exhale, 2 exhale. So you're inhaling and then exhaling. And you'll be able to hear my breath. You're going to inhale sharply and exhale sharply. One more breath, and then relaxing the hands down, letting the shoulders hang heavy. And with time, that'll get easier. You want to be able to become really familiar with that forceful exhale, big inhale. Let's start moving through the fingers. My fingers are so cold today. So you can take the fingertips together, and you're just sliding through the joints. So as I'm sliding, I'm also squeezing my fingertips together and getting a little joint massage. Now keeping the fingertips interlaced, or the fingers interlaced, press the palms down, and as you push the hands down, lengthen the arms. Try not to let the wrist come up. You're trying to keep the whole hand to the floor. And then we'll inhale with the interlaced fingers, just take them up and overhead. As you exhale, bring the pinkies right to the hairline, and then you're going to support the weight of the head. So the head's getting a little relaxation. The front of the throat is opening up. You may feel some stretching across the collarbones. Now gently just lift the elbows toward the ceiling. You may feel a deeper stretch across the neck. And then bring it back through center. We'll keep the hands where they are and just take some side bending right to left. I like taking this figure 8 motion with the shoulders. Sits bones are still pulling down. So as you go right to left, it's opening through the side body. Now let's work into a bigger reach. We're going to unbind the hands and just reach across right to left. If you feel your sits bones come up, you're not going to get as good of a stretch. So actively pulling the sitting bones down, and then you're lifting up and away from them. Now let's start moving to the upper back. We're going to round through. Inhale as you open. Exhale as you round. I'm bending right at the base of the rib cage so I can create that nice rounding through the upper back. Last one. Hold forward. Fingertips are going to plant. Press the right deltoid forward. Come up and press the left side forward. So think about the pec into the shoulder here. Try to create space across the pec muscles. And you can always follow with the gaze. Let's go one more each side. And then as we roll up, we'll take the hands back behind, fingertips facing away from you. Get the whole hand down. Ooh, my forearms are tight today. Press the arms, lift the heart. So if our chest is back, we're not getting so much stretch. We want to push and lift the sternum towards the ceiling as we roll the shoulders away from center. You can release the head all the way back here. I like giving the head a little support with my neck muscles. And if you want to go farther, you can also lift and lower the chin. It's going to create more stretch across the front. As we bring the shoulders back in line with the hips, bind the hands behind you, open up the heart one more time. This time you have the option to lean forward to your fold. Try to keep the hands lifting towards the ceiling. And then gently unrolling. We'll go vertebrae by vertebrae. Hands can be wherever is comfortable. Just unrolling the spine little bits at a time. Starting to incorporate the hips, the glutes, the core muscles. You're using the muscles to lift, maneuver, and lengthen the spine. Always exhaling on the way down, and we inhale as we lift up and away from the mat. One more. Maybe you can release the hands this time and focus just on the core to move. Bringing it back through center. I'm going to go ahead and move my blanket now. Getting a little bit warmer finally. And we'll walk our legs forward in front of us. Not ready to take my fluffy socks off yet though. Sits bones to the floor, add some movement through the ankles. If you can reach your toes, you can press into the toes. If you can't reach them, just bend your knees. And then we'll bring the hands back, sits bones down. Sometimes it helps to lift your butt up so that you can feel those sits bones planting. Now press the entire palm into the floor. I go thumb down and then I fan all my other fingertips out. Now the whole hand is pushing down. Just start circling around the wrist joint. You're trying to wake up the wrist again, get a little bit more energy through the arms. If you can bring the butt up off the floor, you just kind of shift forward and lift through the pelvic floor. The butt is going to lift straight up. Think about pushing the floor away from you. This time, if you can hold, you're using the entire palm to the floor, you're using the pelvic floor to lift up, and you're just squeezing, squeezing, squeezing everything you can. Keep pulling navel to spine. And then exhale, release, let the hands circle out. We're going to do one more thing here for the front of the throat. So right at the collarbones, you're going to place one hand and the other hand on top. And my hand kind of spans across both collarbones. Now from here, keep the pressure down, and then you lean away with the head. You may already feel a nice stretch across the front of the throat here. You can stay there. Or you can work on opening and closing through the jaw, the mouth, and that's going to continue some work through the front of the neck. We'll do about 6 or 7. Bring it through center, let the hands relax, take the head right to left. And then we're going to do it one more time. If you remember which hand was on bottom, just go ahead and switch this time. So now the other hand is on bottom. You have that pressure down. You're holding right at the collarbones. You lean away, feel the stretch. And then maybe you want to open and close the jaw. Coming back through center. This time, releasing, no pressure, just lift and lower from the chin. Oh, that feels so nice. Starting to open up the neck so that we can relax through the shoulders. And then through center, you're going to take the hands and do jellyfish hands. So our hands are directly connected, obviously, to our shoulders through our arms. But if we can work on softening through the hands, it helps us soften into the shoulders. So these nice fluid jellyfish palms. And then bringing it through center. Let's take hands underneath the knees, plant the feet down. From there, you're just going to push the belly towards the thigh. You can flip your hands if that's more comfortable. And then you're going to tap the toes right to left. Now, the closer the heel to the butt, the harder this is. If you're struggling to kind of lift the toes, then you can just take them a little farther. But I like staying close so I have more weight down in the feet. And then I can peel the toes up and feel the front of the shin, the front of the ankle. Sometimes this will lead all the way up into your knees. Be intentional with the movement. Don't just flop the feet around, but peel the toes off the floor. Find the muscles in the shin. And then we'll release left heel inside to the groin. Right foot is going about 1.5 feet away from the groin. So do a little rock from hip to hip. And then get the sitting bones down. From there, your right hand can right hand can bind and the elbow can push the leg down. I like going to the foot so I can also hinge forward. Now, if you want to relax the head on a block, you have that option as well. Your focus is opening up this right side hip joint. So the left side is just staying there. We're leaning forward. We're trying to keep a nice long spine. We're using the elbow to push the knee down to the mat and relax and open through the hip. If coming straight forward feels a little uncomfortable, you can also kind of turn to the side. It changes it. It gives me a little bit more low back on the right side, but it still feels good. It just depends on how your hips are and how tight everything is. So just play around with the move, but I want you to make sure you're feeling it in that right side hip. We'll hold here for a moment. If at any time you feel like you don't have that stretch, just reset, maybe push the knee down a little bit more. And if you have been staying forward and you haven't opened up to the side yet, the last few breaths, try twisting across to the left side. And then we'll walk our hands back up through center, paying attention to the hip, making sure everything is okay. We'll take the right hand underneath the right leg just to move it out. Now you're just rolling the hip in and rolling the hip out. You don't have to go so far where the foot or the knee touches the floor. You can also just let the leg move around without the right hand support. If you want to go farther with the movement, I'm going to stay forward and just lift my leg and now rotate in and rotate out, trying to move the femur around in the hip socket. And then as I come to a seated position, I'm going to cut my right leg and bring it towards my chest. Both sitting bones are down. This right foot is going as close as I can get it to the left hip. Now my right hip is high, so I'm going to sink it. And then I'm going to make sure this front toe is pushing down to the floor. So I have heel close to hip, butt planted, toes down. Now you can bind onto the front leg, sit up nice and tall. As you pull the knee into the chest, you feel another stretch on the right hip. If you want to go farther, if you feel like, I can kind of feel it, but I could take it deeper, the forehead goes towards the knee. Now I'm not rounding the spine, that'll release the stretch. Stay nice and tall, and then just drop the forehead down. Continue to pull yourself closer to the leg. And then you can gently release the leg away from the body. I'm going to open the right leg up and find a 90 and a 90. You have your blocks if you like for support. Otherwise, you're getting this front knee in a 90, heel, knee one line, knee, hip one line. Same thing with this back leg. If you have really tight hips, you may need to tuck your foot in. If you can keep that 90, then great. So I'm going to stack my blocks up on this side actually, and my right hand to the right hip. I'm rolling very slowly to start. If you're not familiar with this movement, we have a lot of muscles connected to our hips. So we want to move really slow. And I'm not shifting my whole body. I'm actually just moving my pelvis to round forward and then to round backward. So all those muscles that are connecting to the pelvis, I'm getting a little stretch on, especially these deeper inner thigh muscles here. And you may notice that one area is a little bit more tight than the other. Sometimes rolling forward is tight. Sometimes, like for me, rolling backward, I have a lot of inner thigh that's really tight here. So that rolling back action, woo, I can definitely feel it. And then taking one more. And coming back to center, bring the leg close to the body, sits bones to the floor, and then we'll adjust it. Center, legs extended, shake them out, whatever you need there for a moment. Keep the heels in line with the hips, fingertips pushing into the floor. So now I feel my core, I feel my pelvic floor, and my toes are going to be active. As we exhale, lean. As we inhale, lift. Exhale, lean. Inhale, lift. Keep the back nice and flat. Try not to create a round, so you may not go down very far, that's fine. We're trying to pump open through our hamstrings. You're driving the back, so the knees down. So if I was rounding, it would look like this, and then I wouldn't be taking the stretch to my legs. So legs stay really active, chest stays open, back stays as flat as you can get it, and then you're exhaling straight forward. Let's go for 3 more. And then find somewhere you can hold. We're going to continue the flat back. So again, it may not be very far, but we want to open up through the hamstrings, keep the sits bones back, lean forward into the stretch. Try to keep the toes active and up towards the ceiling. The neck is relaxed, the shoulders are relaxed. If you have the ability to bind onto something, I can grab my toes, maybe you can grab your ankles, you can grip underneath the knee here. But you can use whatever bind you can get to kind of pulse yourself, use the exhales, get a little bit deeper into the stretch. Let's take one more inhale and exhale. And then we'll soften the toes first, walk the hands up the legs, and then use the hands to press out through the muscles. You're going quads, you're going IT band, you're going to the hips, you're going down to the lower leg. Then we'll move on into our other side. It's called broken shoelace. So now our right heel comes close to the groin and the left foot goes about 1.5 feet away. Sits bones back, you can lean forward into the stretch. If you have your block, go ahead and use it to support the forehead. And remember, this left leg now is getting the action. So it's this left hip we're feeling the stretch on. You can also use the hands to bind. You can use the elbow to push the knee down towards the floor. Whatever takes you into that left hip. You can always walk it over to the right side if you're not ready to go fully straight forward. Once you're settled into your position, deep breathing, use those exhales to keep relaxing. You feel like you could take it a little farther, maybe a little bit more pressure from the elbow to the knee. Well, I shouldn't say to the knee. I'm not actually pushing on the knee. I'm just pushing right above and right below the knee joint. And then for the last few breaths, if you haven't gone over to the right side, let's take that little twist. Maybe now you feel it more into the low back space. And then we'll start walking it back to center. Coming back through, we're supporting the left leg. We're going to bring it up and then allow it to move front to back. So again, thinking about the femur and moving around in the hip joint. Remember, you don't have to go so far. You can just simply let it open and close. You can use a little effort to push it down to the floor. Or I'm going to stack my blocks again and lean to the right so I can float my left leg and then do a little bit more muscle activation as I move the femur. Getting internal rotation and external rotation. If you're doing the floating, make sure you're staying active in your core. You're staying active in the hips and the glutes. So one more. And then left hand catches the leg, sits bones down. Let's go into our twist. So sits bones are planted. Remember, you're bringing the heel as close as you can get it to the hip line. Now heel is in, sits bones are down, big toe is down, especially the big toe. Ooh, this side is a little bit tighter. I need a little bit more adjusting here. So once we can get all three of those things, heel to hip, toe down, sits bones down, then we can bind to the front knee. Oh man, this side is way tighter. Bind to the front knee, squeeze it close to the body, sit up nice and tall. Now, if you feel like you can go farther, remember we don't round into the spine. We want to keep the spine nice and long. You simply just drop the forehead towards the knee. Check in with all the things, heel to hip, sits bones down, toes down. Oh, this side does not want to stay in the stretch. Taking 2 or 3 more breaths here. And then gently releasing the front leg. My hip did not want to stretch that way. So we'll open to our 90 and a 90. Remember, if the back hip is really tight, you may need to bring the heel in. Otherwise, you have heel and knee, knee and hip in line on both sides. You can use the blocks for support if you need to here. And then we want to roll the pelvis front to back. So it's not my whole body that's moving. It's just pelvis tilting back, pelvis tilting forward, as if the pelvic bowl was just tipping or dumping out water in one direction and dumping out water in the other direction. And then hopefully you feel all those little connecting muscles to the hip getting a nice stretch. Oh my gosh, this hip is tight today. So happy I'm doing this. We'll go 3 more times front to back. And then the last time, we'll take left hand to bring it to the knee, bring the knee forward. We're going to cross the ankles and go through quadruped. Just keep the blocks near you in case you need them. So we did some movements through the hips, the shoulder. Let's work a little bit into the knee here. I'm going to tuck my toes underneath to start. So I have my toes down. My toes are tucking towards my body as much as I can so that I can wiggle and push weight down onto my feet. Now you can kind of lean back. You might feel some more pressure on the toes. You're getting a nice toe stretch. And then as you lean back a little farther, which if you have blocks, you can just hold the blocks and walk yourself back here. So as my toes are pushing down, I may feel some more stretch across the quads. If you don't feel a stretch, you can always lower the block or get rid of the blocks entirely. And then we're going to shift back forward and untuck the toes this time. Now, if the foot is flat here, great. If this feels like enough stretch across the ankle, great, stay here. If you can start leaning back, you again can use the blocks, whatever height that you need. It's not a very common stretch to stretch the top of the ankle, so this may take some time to find, but that's okay. It literally only takes a few times before it starts feeling pretty good. So now, because I do this one all the time, I'm going to get rid of my blocks. I'm going to lean back. Now I want to feel even more stretch, so I'm going to keep the tops of the feet down. I'm going to close the abdominals off, and then I'm just going to let the knees float. Now I'm getting a much deeper stretch across the front of the ankle into the shin, and that is going to help my knees release as well. And then gently coming down through center. And this next one, we're going to go fully internal rotation. I'm going to show you the back view so that you can see where my feet are going. Now, you can do this one by sitting on a block right underneath the butt, and then you just gently bring the toes out wider. So see how my butt, well, I can go a little wider. My butt is inside of my heels. So that's what it looks like from behind. I'm going to go ahead and shift forward. Again, if you need to sit on something, you can do a block, a pillow, whatever. You can also do one leg at a time, where you're extending one leg and then focusing on the other side. For the sake of a video, I'm just going to do both legs at the same time. You can also use blocks or whatever you need to support the hands, because you can hold the weight of your upper body as much as you need to here. Once the weight starts falling down, then you're going to feel that deeper stretch and the pressure around the knees. So you start high, supporting, get the toes into place. I'm wiggling just outside the hips, and then I'm gently letting the hips, the sits bones, fall towards the mat. Now, keeping the knees together, you can see how my feet are wider and the knees are coming in towards center. So I don't want the knees wide. I want to keep that internal rotation. The femur bone is rolling in, and I'm getting a stretch through the outside of the leg here. So if this feels good, you can stay here and hold. If you have great internal rotation, which I do not, but I'm going to try to lean back a little bit today. And this is a very intense stretch. It's a lot on the knee. It's not something you just pop into. This is something that takes a little time to build. So you can always stop the video. You can do one leg at a time. You can just do it for a few breaths and release. What you don't want is that pinching sensation on the knees. You don't want too much pressure on the knees. If you feel the pressure, you can always lift up and out of the pose or sit on something. That'll always help. If you're really familiar with this movement, if you've been doing it for a while, you can also lean forward. I'm just going to place my forearms on the block here. Now again, this changes the stretch. This adds a lot deeper of a stretch across the knee. And then we'll gently lift up and out of it. Use the hands, use the core, lift the weight out of the legs, and then bring the feet together. Now, if you can handle sitting with everything close together for a moment, we're just going to massage through the knee joints. So good presses on the inside of the knee, all the way to the outside of the knee, straight across the knee, all over. Now we'll come through our quadruped, our hands and knees. And from there, just give the legs a little movement. Just let them kind of open up, move around, whatever you need here. We're going to do a little bit more for the spine. So now we've relaxed through the ankles, the knees, the hips. Let's go through the low back and the spine. We'll do one more internal rotation here. And this is to release the sacrum. So I'll give you the back view one more time. As I'm hips distance here, hopefully I'm hips distance here, I'm going to then lift my feet up and pull them as wide as I can, and then let them come back through center. So as I open the feet up, now I'm getting that internal rotation, it's creating a nice little pull on the hips, and it's opening up space across the sacrum. So try that a few times. Lift into your core, keep the spine nice and long, so no arching, no rounding. And as you lift and push the toes wide, it opens the pelvis, it releases the sacrum. And then hold the toes wide. Now very carefully, just gently push the hips back. I always feel little adjustments right away in my hips and my spine. You may get some cracking, but mostly you feel some hollowness around the sacrum here. Keep breathing. And then gently shifting back forward. Let's extend into our downward facing dog, just so you can pull the heels down. You can open the backs of the knee joints. You can let the chest shift right to left. You can bend the elbows, push the chest towards the thigh, float heel to toe. Whatever feels good for you here. It's a moment to get some movement out of the body. I'm feeling like I need to go all the way forward to our plank. And then we're going to eventually land down on the floor, and we'll do a little bit of compression for the spine. So it's great to get a good amount of compression on the spine, not too much, but a good amount of just a good amount of compression. So you can start in Sphinx pose. The legs are long, the hands are down. Make sure the wrist is pushing down as well. Now watch as I lift my sternum and I draw my lats back and together, my scapula back and together. So I don't want to keep this front body closed here. It's about opening the front body and creating a nice pull along the back muscles. So you can stay here, check in with the wrist, keep pushing the floor away from you. If you know how to go into a cobra pose, I'm going to take my hands back a little farther under my shoulders, lift myself up, and then the same thing, open the chest, squeeze the scapula together. Now I feel a little bit more compression in my back body. Same thing, Lengthen the arms, keep the hands pushing the floor away from you. And we're just going to hold this for a moment. Just take a few deep breaths. As you're creating the compression in the back, you're creating a big lift and opening space in the front. One more breath here. Try to squeeze. Exhale as you bring the chin down. You bring the ribs back. If your forearms are on the mat, just come up to the palms and press it all the way back to a child's pose. A child's pose, our toes are together, knees are wide. Your knees are wide enough to bring the belly down, the chest down. You can also place the block here at the chest. You can place the block at the forehead. You can just relax all the way down to the floor. Allow the hips to be heavy, the chest to be heavy. And then we're going to walk it forward to a puppy's pose. So our knees are wide right now. As I walk forward, I'm just going to scooch my knees in a little bit. As I start walking forward, I'm walking my fingertips. I bring my knees in. Now we're going to pause. My knees are under my hips and my butt is high. So I'm opening up from the navel all the way through the chin, which means my gaze stays forward. So as the fingertips are reaching, I'm just continuing to gaze forward and sink my chest down. Now this is a place where you can easily place a pillow on the floor if the chest isn't quite open enough to get there. The wider the hands are, the easier the posture. The closer, the more difficult. So I go just about level with the edges of my mat. And then I just continue to push the armpit down, the chest down, the chin down to the floor. I have the mic, so I'm not going to push all the way to the floor. But get to a spot that is comfortable. It's pushing you a little bit in your stretch, and you can hold and breathe. Check in, make sure the bottom is not in child's pose. We keep the hips high so that we create this stretch in the front body here. Taking one more breath. As you exhale, now pull the hips back towards the heels. Beautiful. And then we'll come back forward into our quadruped. Any movement in quadruped, you can roll through the shoulders. You can move the spine. You can find any movement that feels good here for you. Just think about the joints, the shoulders. Think about the hips, where things want to move. And then we'll land in a forward fold. So we're going to tuck the toes under. You can either walk the hands back to the toes or just step the feet forward. From there, opposite elbow, hang heavy. You may need to pulse through the legs a little bit. We just want to get a forward fold into our practice. Find somewhere to land. You have the blocks you can use for hands. You can bind to same side ankle and pull yourself close to your legs. You can take a bind behind the legs here, working yourself to the thigh. Whatever bind or just relaxing the hands down, you just make sure the big toes, the heels are down, the foot is planted, and then the sits bones are lifting up and away. Now, if you can't get your legs straight, that's just fine. Just think about being really heavy in the upper body and continue to focus on opening up the hamstrings. Releasing the head. There's no tension in the neck. There's no tension in the jaw. No tension in the shoulders. The upper body is acting as a weight to release our spine. One more breath here. Now, don't bring the head up. Keep the gaze down. I'm going to re-square myself forward. If you have a block or two blocks, you can use them under your hands here. So as my butt is sinking, as my hips sink, my spine is going to go back to an erect position. So I open up the toes, I start sinking the hips into my squat, and then the spine lifts and the gaze goes straight forward. So I didn't actually do very much for my upper body. It didn't really do anything. It was just my hips adjusting that allowed my spine to come up. So let's do that 2 more times. If this is a hard position, you can also sit on a block here. But we're going to move 3 times and then we'll hold. So toes go forward, inhale to your fold. And then exhale, open the toes, just bring the hips down. The gaze goes up. Let's do 2 more. Exhale, hips down. And last one. And now hold at the bottom. This is where you can place that block underneath for support. If you know how to do a deep squat, you're just sitting here, hands together, elbows to the knees to press them apart. Or we're just holding for a moment. I love to do more back work here. I like to round. So I go saddle grip, reverse it, same side ankle. And then I don't want my knees to collapse in. I'm going to continue to push the knees out as I bring my forehead to the floor. So you're getting this kind of double stretch. My sits bones are pulling down for the low back, and then my head is pulling down for the rest of the spine. And then we'll gently release onto the floor. Just walk yourself back. I grab my blanket again and keep the blocks near you. We'll go all the way onto the back. I guess I should shift a little bit. All the way onto the back. And you're just going to pull one knee in as you release the other leg long. This is just to open up the hip flexor. So this long leg area, really extend it down. As you're pulling this knee in, you're getting this nice cross stretch across the hip flexors. Then both legs up into the air. Keep the heels, knees, hips all in one line. And just let the toes shake out, the ankles move, whatever feels good there. We're just letting the blood flow. And then we'll bend the knees. I'm going to move my blocks out of the way. Up into a supported bridge. You can plant the feet down and take the hands underneath the hips. Walk the elbows in if you want to lift higher. If you're doing this pose with the hands, you can then pull the hands toward the heel. So I'm taking my hands to support, and then I'm lengthening towards the heel to get a nice stretch on the spine. If you have a block, you can just place the block at the sacrum and then relax there for a breath. I already had some cracks and pops out of my spine just from relaxing onto the block. This is always a good adjustment. Allowing the body to relax. We didn't do too much work today, but even moving the joints, opening them up is very releasing. It can be very activating. And then we'll gently push into the feet. Engage the hips just enough to bring the block out from under you if it's there, or to remove the hands. And then bring it on down, knees to chest, circle around the sacrum. You can let the knees go right to left for a little spinal twist. And then make your way into your full Shavasana. Hang out in Shavasana as long as you like. I would love to cuddle up into that blanket right now and take a nap. I hope you enjoyed that nice stretchy class today. That's something I would do because we went through all the joints of the body. So something I would do at least once a week just to get the joints moving. Those are all really good movements and really, really simple things that you can do throughout your day. If you're getting a stiff back, if your shoulders are getting tight, you're doing a lot of rounding, take any of those movements. If you're sitting all day, you've got tight hips, any of those movements you can do 2 or 3 times just to get the blood flowing in those areas, just to start the muscles opening and closing and to make sure the joints are not getting stuck in place. So enjoy that one. I'm going to inhale, palms lift. Exhale, hands to my heart. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on the House of Chi.